Welcome to the Say Hello to Your Therapist podcast. I'm so excited that this is our first episode. I can't wait to share this conversation with you. I want you all to say hello to Dr. Amber Lyda, a psychologist who has worn every hat when it comes to therapy: the client, the therapist, the practice manager. She now uses her experience to support therapists in navigating private practice work so that they can provide the best care to their clients. Her brain is a treasure trove of knowledge, and she is just plain fun. So, who better to chat with about the therapy world? We're going to talk about insurance, why therapists may or may not take it, big tech companies, all sorts of fun stuff like that when it comes to therapy. Let us know if you have any other questions that we can address in the future. A few things to clarify. We make some references to how to find your therapist. And I think just as a quick intro, you can Google people to find a therapist. You can use Psychology Today or similar directories. There are ways that you can try and find a therapist through your insurance. And then there are sometimes these other online companies that help you get connected to their specific therapists that they have contracted with. So that gives you a little bit of context as to what we're talking about. Just tune in and have a good listen. I'm so excited. Hello, Amber. I would love to start out by asking, with most of my other guests, I'm pretty much going to be starting out, unless they're returning in the future, with how they ended up becoming a therapist. But you have that journey and a little bit of an extra journey on top of it that really speaks to your current work and your passion right now. Do you feel like you're comfortable with kind of doing a little here's how I became a therapist, but here's how my second part, all of
Absolutely.
that went
Yeah.
down? Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. Being a therapist is still pretty core to my identity, even though I've been
Yeah.
a lot of other stuff past
Yeah.
10 years. I knew early what I wanted to do. It was either marine biology or psychology. It was going to be one of the two.
Ooh,
I got
that.
turned down for an internship in Costa Rica when I was 17, but I got said yes to for a job at an inpatient hospital. So
Cool.
at 17, I was working in a crisis stabilization unit, and it was one side was regular crisis stabilization. The other side was a DID clinic, dissociative identity disorder, back then called
Wow.
multiple personality disorder.
Yes.
And I was like, this is my freaking calling. This is what I am on this planet to do. I would work double shifts constantly, and this will date me, but the internet had just come out.
Just come out.
I would do my
Those
2
times.
shifts, and I would come home to my dial-up internet and be waiting so I could do research on everything that I was learning. I mean, I was totally obsessed.
Oh, making that
And
sound.
yeah, it took forever. And I would print it out on those scrolls of paper, single sheets. It was the
I
kind that you
forgot about
pull.
those. You pulled the edges off. Yes.
It was
I
so
remember
satisfying.
those. Yes. Really great for the sensory.
Yeah,
Memes.
ASMR.
Yeah.
So I worked with complex trauma since then. So for about 30 years in a variety of settings, but really found my home in university counseling centers after my graduate school, and absolutely freaking loved it. I felt like I had found my family in there.
Yes.
It was incredible work. But there were a couple things that I didn't like. One of them was that I would work with a student for 4 or 5 years, and then they would graduate and we couldn't keep working together.
Yeah. Bye.
Most of them aren't going to live in the town that they went to college in. So they would move to some other city. And I started dreaming way back then about it would be so cool if we could do therapy online. Nobody was doing that.
No.
And
There was
also,
a stigma around it for a long time too,
oh,
right?
yeah.
When I went to grad school, it was talked about can you have a real relationship online?
Yeah.
Of what you get in the room,
Totally.
But yeah.
And this even before stigma. This was when people were like, is that even legal?
Yeah.
And it was kind of unclear. And I was such a rule follower that I was like, I can't even look at that right now, but maybe in the future. But then the other piece was that I was, as much as I loved my work, I really didn't have a life outside of work. And I'm thinking, geez, I am working a lot of hours. I don't have time outside of work. I really dreamed of being able to be location independent and travel and do long-term travel. So I have that kind of percolating in my head. And then way down the road, decided that I was going to try telehealth in a private practice. And it went so freaking well. It was just like, I knew after the second session, the first session was a hot mess because the technology
Yes.
and I were like, what's happening? I was so nervous.
That could really scare you away.
Totally. It's crazy now. But at the time, it was, it was like totally new. But I fell in love with it. And I started working like 20 hours a week and making the same amount of money that I was working at a counseling center and commuting. So 50 hours a week. I was making a good salary, but I could make the same salary in half the time by doing a private practice. So that's what I started doing. And then I had friends who were like, how are you doing this all online? So I started teaching people how to do it online. And then my second business was born.
Which is how I found you for the first time, honestly. Like, you are one of you actually don't know this. I haven't told you this. You're actually one of the key reasons I'm where I'm at. Do you remember when you recorded your little podcast series on going online and stuff like that?
Yeah.
I was in process of trying to decide if I was going to leave my university counseling setting, just like you. I just don't know if the work-life balance is there, but I love it so much. And I'm so social, how am I going to survive? How am I going to work at home? Some of the things that you address in your podcast were things I was really wrestling with, things that you work with in your courses. I was doing part-time to try it out, and I was doing it. Listened to that, did the step up stuff as I transitioned to full-time. And then one of your workshop ads for your more recent marketing one came up. And I always love seeing where you are connected to other people I found. I can't remember if I found you first or Kim Tolson, because I just happened to search I bet there's traveling therapists out there, because my husband and I are super into travel. And I was like, it has to have been done. So I found Kim Tolson first, and I think saw that you two were connected. It might be the other way around. It's all blurry now. But all that to say, then I learned about intensives as I was designing my website, and I went to Stephanie Feld's workshop.
Yes.
Which if I can get her on here, I would love to talk about intensives. But then you were literally in there hyping her up. And I was like, and I had heard her say, hi, Amber. And then as you're talking, I was like, oh my God, this is Amber Lyda. We're in the same workshop together. And then when you were doing your more recent launch, I jumped in. I was like, you know what? I really love the way her brain works. She sees the big picture. She sees client need and balances it so well with therapist need and focusing on both. And I was, so here, we're actually here. Probably you're a big piece of it.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. It is neat to see the people who've been around for a long time in this very weird online course creator for therapists micro niche.
Yeah.
I met Kim way back. She was one of my very first students. And then we got to become friends. And she's just a crazy talented entrepreneur. She can do
she's so smart.
anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the work that she does, because I listened to her podcast a few times. She specifically says taking insurance is really important to me. That's a passion. That's a value I'm going to carry. So while I haven't spoken to her directly about it, it just speaks really well to what I want us to talk about today. So we could start with insurance, maybe, if you want, because there are therapists like Kim Tolson, for instance, who feel like part of the issue is educating therapists on navigating the insurance. And then there are people who are like, we're jumping ship on providing insurance for our clients. And there are people that promote just stop taking insurance. You'll get what you want. And then what drew me in from your workshop, because that's where our most recent connection was you saying there's a middle ground, and here's how we can manage that. And you don't have to forego all insurance. Maybe you just there was a step to it, a step down. Can you tell me your own personal philosophy about that?
Yeah, I don't love zealot beliefs. I feel like there needs to be some kind of nuance. I'll tell you, when I started my private practice, your audience is going to be like, she has an anxiety disorder. Yes, I do.
Why do you think we get along?
Right.
Anxiety, it's all there.
Oh my gosh. I was so afraid of insurance as a clinician because I had heard how many issues therapists were having with, I don't know if the consumer knows, but we have to submit something to insurance. It has to be so freaking perfect to get paid. And even the way we write our therapy note, for us to be able to conceptualize what's happening over the course of our work with you and make sure we're staying on track with your goals. And, there are good clinical reasons to have notes.
Absolutely. You can't get rid of them, sadly. For those of us who don't like documentation, they're a necessary evil.
I think part of the reason we don't like documentation is insurance.
Yeah.
Because we can't even write the note way that would be helpful for us clinically. We have to write it in a way that's going to convince the insurance company that they should pay for the session. It's no longer even all about. So all of that to say, I was terrified of getting something wrong with insurance, having them claw back my income, having them not pay for sessions. And then I know me, I would have a hard time telling a client, like, listen, insurance didn't pay the $125. I'm going to need you to pay me.
Yep.
I probably would just eat the money.
Eat the money. Yeah. I have such an issue. Being able to go back and be like, hey, yeah. And I didn't even know what clawbacks were until after I started working. I was like, oh my God. And hearing people talk about. So clawbacks is literally when insurance goes back and says, never mind. And they take the money back, right? From the person who has been paid. So it's not necessarily from the client. It's the therapist.
And you paid your mortgage with that money. And now hey, by the way, we're going to need that 25 G's back. There was a
small
dot,
amounts.
You didn't dot. Yeah.
Or like some sort of loophole of, I don't know. Oh man, there's so much overlap here. But when we get into online and stuff like that, especially people who are like 100% online, there's talk out there, right, of like insurance companies being like, oh, we're not going to pay as much if you're providing services virtually, even though it is actually more accessible for a lot more clients to be able to utilize. I was talking to a client yesterday who I just happened to be like, do you ever wish your parents went to therapy? And she was like, all the time, And I said, how has it gone when you've talked to them about it? And one of them's response was, I'm so busy, I can't do it. And she was like, well, it's online.
Right. Fit it in. There's room.
Yeah, there's room in there somewhere.
I think that for me, I didn't take insurance because I was so afraid of messing up and getting in trouble. I found out that I could fill my practice with people who wanted to pay and were willing to pay out of pocket. So I had that experience. When you ask, like, what do I think other people should be doing? I think they just have to do what works for their personality, for their phase of life. Would it be ideal if we could all take insurance? Of course. Well, who wouldn't want to make therapy as accessible as possible? Insurance companies, that's who, because they are for profit. So in case the consumer doesn't know how they work, the idea is that all of us pay a bunch of money in, and they make money by most people not using the benefits. That way they can keep the money. So we noticed during the pandemic, use of therapy went up astronomically because everybody's like, wait, I can do this online? So everybody started utilizing their insurance more. Insurance companies started making so little money because people were using their benefits that now they're introducing loopholes to be like, oh, you have to see your telehealth therapist in person once every 6 months, knowing darn well most of us don't live close to our clients when we're doing telehealth. So I think that the average consumer may not know how difficult insurance companies make it to work with them, and that their priority isn't always the best care for the client. It is making a profit. And so if I need to see a client for 25 sessions to help them with XYZ issue, the insurance company is not paying unless that person has a diagnosis, and they're only going to pay for a certain number of sessions based on the diagnosis, which puts therapists in a real awkward position. I'm unwilling to lie about a diagnosis and put my license on the line in order to leverage sessions for a client. I know somebody needs therapy, and I know that they can't pay it out of pocket, and the insurance company didn't want to get into that game at all.
For sure. It's hard because, like you said, there are some people who are willing to invest the time and money into therapy. Then there are people who are like, don't have that income. I need it to be through my insurance. What
Mhm.
I have found that is even more gut wrenching is that I will do intakes with people. I use one of those third party sites that does the insurance for you, but I can put in the benefits and know exactly what they're going to need to pay. And I can
That's
tell them
great.
before they make an appointment with me when I use insurance. Essentially, I've had people be like, oh, yeah, I'll do this. And then their plan is awful. They're paying out of pocket until they reach a certain deductible or whatever. There have been a couple where I've switched to private pay just for that reason, because I'm like, I'm willing to take less than what they're giving you.
Reimbursing, yeah.
Yes, and because I'm in this particular third-party site is that their copay goes to the manager and not to me.
Oh, interesting.
I'm not charging them the copay. They're paying them on there, and I get paid whatever the reimbursement contract amount
I
is.
see,
So
okay.
that's one of those kind of give and takes. There's other sites where they find you clients and you have a whole EHR, right? I don't know if we're allowed to say their name, so we just won't.
Right.
But there's one that rhymes with shmishme and one that rhymes with mama. I don't But the mama one is actually one that is kind of considered more ethical and good, and they'll help you find clients or whatever. And you're paying them a service. So when you see people who are like working by themselves, like on their own, right? They are likely paying a fee like to be a part of those things, or some of their money is getting cut in some way. And that's still their ability sometimes to be likely a part of a solo practice instead of a group practice, because people in group practices sometimes choose to be in a group practice because they don't want to deal with figuring out the insurance. And they can say, this is our policy. So they can still have all the benefits of being in a group practice and not have to deal with the headaches of the insurance stuff quite as much. And that can
Right.
be a big barrier to some people who potentially are just in a not great like situation, right? In their office. Like I've known some therapists who've literally like had to leave their group practice and start all over because of poor management or whatever.
That should give the consumer like some clue about what a pain in the butt insurance is, clinician, that clinicians will work for a group practice that's going to take 30 to 40% of their income in order to deal with marketing and insurance when they're already getting paid not a lot through the insurance company. Reimbursement tends to be lower through insurance companies and private pay. So they're already taking, on average, if a therapist takes insurance, they're earning $60 less an hour than if they were in private pay. And then on top of that, they're giving up 30 to 40% to the group practice owner because marketing and insurance can feel totally overwhelming to deal with yourself. That gives you a little indicator. If your therapist takes insurance, like give them a high five. They're doing a lot of work to try to make sure that therapy is as accessible as possible.
I think you and I are the type that are really into giving personal examples because it helps illustrate a lot more accessibly. I remember you've told great stories about when you found your therapist who did not take insurance, and I love that story. I've heard it a couple times, so I'd love to hear that again. But there's also a story that you told of I found somebody who had all the credentials and also took insurance. The two side by side are really kind of indicative of what situations a lot of therapists are going to find themselves in. Do you feel like that would be helpful to share?
I was looking for a therapist. I found this woman who had every credential under the sun. I mean, the most advanced degrees, all of the certifications. She was clearly brilliant and very well trained. And I went to see her, and she knew all the right techniques. But it was so clear that she was not particularly invested in me. She was seeing 40 plus clients a week to earn enough through insurance to pay her bills. So there just wasn't a lot of, emotional resources left to connect with me in the way that everybody who's ever been in therapy knows. Like, you have to have a connection with your therapist for it to truly work. And so I left her, even though it was only a $20 copay. It should work. It's a $20 copay.
I do the system.
Right.
Like
It wasn't working. We were not vibing. Several friends had told me about this other man who was a therapist. He did not have his rates on his website. He
I
had.
remember
I
that.
called him.
I know. So we've talked about that. There's such a mixed thing of put it on your site so people can make an informed decision, but also how are they going to connect with you if they don't chat with you?
Right. Right. I would have never called him if I had
Mm-hmm.
known what his rate was, but I didn't. So I called him and we had an amazing free consultation. And I was like, oh man, this is my dude. Like, this is the guy who's getting me. Therapy is going to be so much faster because he so clearly gets me.
Mm-hmm.
And then he told me his rate. And I thought I was going to throw up. So I was coming from counseling center world too, where we didn't charge. So
Yeah.
I was just like shocked and appalled,
Mm-hmm.
frankly. But
Yes.
he was also so good. And he was like, I can see you're shocked.
I can read the room. I can read the screen.
I'm a therapist. So you're
Yeah.
feeling. He was basically like, let's give you a minute to get over the sticker shock. And you look at your finances and I'll look at mine and I'll see if there's any room for me to be able to come down a little bit. And then let's meet up again next Thursday or whatever.
Yeah.
We did. And we found a place where I could make it work. I literally gave up cable to make it work because I was like, this is my dude and
Mm-hmm.
I need help. I was in a
Yeah.
lot of pain at the time and it
Mm-hmm.
was absolutely worth it. And I made
Mm-hmm.
it work.
Yeah. Yeah. And I even remember times where I went in to those search, like you go into your insurance thing to find
Yeah.
like whoever is in the directory or whatever. And I found somebody, but then wanted to like check them on the website, went to the website, saw somebody else that I thought might be a better fit. I didn't realize until after I started seeing her that that particular person in that practice was not a part of my insurance.
Oh no.
So I ended up, I forget about that sometimes. And that was such a bummer. So I barely got to see her like once or twice. And then we stopped. And so you start all over, you find somebody else. I had conversations with friends and colleagues at the time, and they were like, well, and I went to this other therapist who was much closer to my house, and I thought it was going to work. And it was not a good fit. And was talking about how hard that was and what did I do trying to find a therapist is so hard. Like I'm as a therapist saying that, right?
Yes.
And so I talked to a friend and she's like, well, what would you like? Because she knew about this couples therapist that we had seen as sort of a fake premarital because we were already married kind of thing that my husband and I went to go do. And I was like, I loved her. If I could see her, that would be so great. But she didn't take insurance. She did do a super bill, which we can chat about because I remember her explaining that. And that was my first exposure to it. I was in university counseling and had no idea about insurance stuff at the time. I remember her being like, I'll give you a super bill, which I love how you explain it. It's kind of like a fancy receipt and you give it to insurance and they see if they can reimburse anything. And I remember looking at her and be like, in my head, I'm never going to do that.
No, I'm never going to do that.
I'm never going to do that, which is partly why I now am a part of, I think since I pay them, I can say this, Mentaya, who manages that for you. And I've been able to do that with some of my clients. There's other ones out there, but that's the one I use. So I'm going to mention them. No ad, no endorsement, but essentially like it's so hard all the way around. And so I ended up seeing her and paying out of pocket. And my husband and I were like, you could at least go see her once a month because of like where I was at. And I was going to benefit from that so much. Now I see her fairly frequently. I stopped seeing her for a while when I had babies, went back to her. Her fee had gone up. And I'm like, okay, I love you too much.
Right. When you know it's going to work,
Mm-hmm.
it saves you money in the long term to work with somebody who can actually help make change.
Yeah.
If they're insurance or private pay or whatever the heck they are, when you find your person, it's like finding your soulmate in regular life. You just don't want to give that up if you don't have to.
Which is why sometimes even if you find like a good therapist who takes insurance, they're probably busy because they got people who never want to leave, So it can really add to the challenge of finding a therapist. That's one of the main reasons I found this podcast, so that you could get a sense of the different therapists and how they are in the room instead of just going to their Psychology Today and looking at like a 30-second video, if that. It's actually 20 seconds, I think. Yeah. So it's
that's
tough.
No way to pick somebody. It's better than nothing. But when a therapist really works on that profile or works on their website so that you can see the personality that they treat. Because a diagnosis is one thing that you have to have a certain expertise to treat each diagnosis. But personality fit is a big deal. So that part is harder to capture in what they write on their Psychology Today or their website. So if you're catching that vibe on their website or Psychology Today, scoop them up.
Do the initial consult or whatever.
Yeah.
Make sure to verify. Like you and I we've both talked about this in our work, but like how there's the whole social media trend. A lot of therapists are feeling like they have to be online in that way. And the way when I decided to do it, I thought, well, let's see if anything comes of it. But if nothing else, it's a way for people to cyber stalk you to make sure you're real and also see a little bit more of you. So it's not necessarily a bad thing that they have it, but like seeing therapists who like are putting all that energy into trying to make that work as well.
Yeah, it makes sense. Your therapist's skill is not predicted by how many TikTok videos they've made. It's sort of like a totally independent thing. It is nice, I think, when therapists will put at least a little bit of something out just so that we can see, like, you know, who are they attracted to? Are they Brené Brown folks or are they what's that guy's name? Not Tony?
I see Jay Shetty all the time, though.
Oh, I like Jay.
Yeah, you like
this
Jay?
is the guy that's like Mr. Positive Psychology and he makes a ton of money. Tony Robbins.
Yeah,
you know, like if who are they putting quotes up from? That's going to tell you something about how they think about the world. I'm never putting up Tony Robbins quotes. He's not my dude.
Not my dude. Yeah. Yeah.
So it does give a little bit of insight, but don't think that your therapist needs to be an influencer to be a good therapist. Those are two totally different skill sets.
On the flip side, some therapists are purely influencers and some are influencers and still see clients, you know? Yeah. So just because they're on there doesn't mean they're necessarily taking clients, but if they're on there, that doesn't mean they're not taking clients. So it is kind of, again, just adds to another layer of like what we're doing. But where could we go from here? Do we want to talk about types of degree? Because I feel like that kind of does touch on some of the money too. And like people like feeling like they need it. You were mentioning it when you were talking about finding your therapist, I think.
Yeah. And then let's also circle back to the big tech stuff. Because
absolutely. We're gonna. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a real weird degree hierarchy. I feel like it used to be more present that when people went looking for a therapist, they only looked for people with doctorates. And if they're doing that, you're really missing out because some of the best therapists I have ever known have been all over the degree spectrum. It's really the degree, I think, for consumers is a shortcut to thinking through, like, are they qualified enough? I have 20 bajillion therapists to look at. How can I narrow down the pool? And they narrow it down by degree. And I get that's just trying to like make the search go faster. I'd really recommend narrowing it down by the type of treatment they provide, what their specialty is, and the personality match. That's going to help you more than anything else. There are like different levels of clinical experience that you get through your grad program. So like for a doctorate, I had 2 years of practical experience before they even sent me to internship. And then I did a year of internship. And then I did a year of residency. And all of those are me doing clinical work supervised by somebody else, like literally watching the videos of my clinical work, telling me where I'm doing an okay job and where I need to improve. So yeah, that's super valuable. It does make me a better clinician than if I hadn't had that. But let's say somebody has their LMHC. And then they've been working in the field for 10 years, you know, and they've gone to all these certification trainings and CEUs and all of this. You just can't say that one is going to be a better clinician than the other based solely on degree. And some people are just intuitively freaking good. And without any degree, going to be good at helping other human beings.
Yeah, I've known. Well, I feel very strongly about that. Yeah, same. I feel like I'm totally on the same page. I've been on multiple sides of it. I think one of the sad truths of it is that if you have a doctorate, insurance will pay more or you can charge more. So I think there is kind of an element to it. My mother really always regretted not getting her doctorate. She was in social work, just kind of had that messaging to me. And I ended up going into a doctorate program. But I'll be transparent, because I don't know if enough people talk about this. I didn't get into grad school the first time and used a year to do a lot of soul searching and gain experience. And I have no regrets about that. And then got into the program that I went to. And I fully believe that that's how it was supposed to go. I think I was so much more ready, all of that. But I apply the second time around to more master's programs. Cause then I was like, I'm fine with that. Like I know I can do the work that I would want to do at some point with just a master's. I loved the program I went to. And then I've seen, because I've also worked in settings just like you, university counseling centers where it's multidisciplinary.
Yeah.
And the benefits of that like are rampant. There's no limit to it. And unfortunately, you do see, like you said, sort of a hierarchical thing there. We saw that in some of our training stuff sometimes where doctorate level trainees were not loving that they had somebody who did not have a doctorate as part of their training. Oh, yeah. It was really painful. And so that really kind of opened my eyes to some problematic stuff because that person was highly, highly skilled, brilliant. And I learned so much from them. And I have gone to therapists that did not have a doctorate. I actually have never seen a therapist that had a doctorate, honestly.
I don't know whether the therapist I don't know what his degree was.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was
That's
a doctor
cool.
or not.
Yeah. Can't even tell you. See. So like, and then you get doctorates who also like are really honed in on one specific type of training. Like different programs do different things. That's why you just have to kind of like feel people out. So I do know that I have had better experiences with different therapists. I had one really bad one who was like, well, what's different about like what you did, what I can do? And it was just quite unpleasant. I was pretty unhappy with that therapist.
That's a weird thing to say to your client.
Yeah. Story for another time. She was great. So, and then the person that I pay, private pay, out of pocket, I'll just say it, $200 an hour is an LPC, I think. Yeah. She's fantastic. I wouldn't have it any other way. She gets me.
Right.
That's worth its weight in gold, right? To be understood is to be seen and know. So
I will say, and this might be controversial, but I will say that it is important to me that regardless of the degree, that the person is well-trained clinically.
Yes, absolutely.
So, like if you're going to be doing EMDR on somebody, you dang well better have gone through a lot of training to do that. If you're going to be doing complex therapy treatment, you need to have gone through a lot of training, whether it's CEUs or post-grad courses or whatever.
Don't just be winging it.
Yeah, like this is not follow your intuition land. That's part of it, but also part of it is like we have learned through research what not to do. And we don't need to go out there harming clients, like experimenting willy-nilly. Yeah. Grad degree, don't care. Clinical experience and training and good supervision, care.
And you mentioned, do they have the specialty that you need? Do they have the type of treatment like training, like EMDR or what have you, that you're looking for? So many people these days, separate from degrees, the recommendation is consistently let people know what your specialties are, even if you're trained big picture and you like working with everybody. You have a pretty strong philosophy about this, right? Can you speak to it?
From a marketing point of view, it is very hard to get found as a generalist because nobody's typing in, I need a generalist therapist into Google. And even if they were, there would be so many therapists that would match with that it just wouldn't work from a marketing point of view. So
and
I feel
what consumer knows what generalist is unless they had a therapist parent,
Exactly. So really a lot of therapists niche because it's easier to get found that way, much easier to fill your practice that way. But they usually will have many niches because we like working with a variety of people. And so you'll see on their website a bunch of niches always go from Psychology Today to their website because we can't fit enough on the Psychology Today.
They literally have character limits.
Right. And you might match with the person that they treat well. So I think mostly from a marketing point of view. And then while I can work with a lot of people, I think it is important to know who we don't work well with. So we get them matched to people who do. So I'm big into figuring out who your anti-niche client is so that you're not bringing people into your practice just because you're like, I need another client. But you're bringing in people who fit with the methods that you use. Here's a good example, y'all. I'm going to just be vulnerable. When I was in training, I was seeing this guy as a client, and he needed help being able to feel his feelings and name his feelings and express his feelings. And I'm like, oh, sweet. I know how to do all of that, and like I'm applying psychodynamic therapy and we're working on it. We worked on it for a while and nothing was changing. I messed up real bad and I have apologized. I never asked for his medical records. This didn't even occur to me.
Yeah.
Like it was such a clear presenting issue. Like I need to, and it was a dude. So I had some stereotypes of like, okay, it's a dude. He wants to get in touch with the feelings with.
Gotcha.
4 months go by, no progress. And he's literally like, no, you don't understand. I don't feel it. I'm like, but in your body. He's like, no, I'm not feeling anything.
There's nothing. It's gone. Like there's nothing.
And I'm like, okay, this is beyond my skill set. So I start asking around. One of my supervisors is like, let's get his medical records just in case he's had a head injury. Find his medical records. Homeboy had multiple concussions, had a head injury, a medical diagnosis of alexithymia. He couldn't find the words to name his feelings. And he had damaged a part of his brain that would have given him access to feelings.
Yeah. So also these were probably all things that would have allowed him to like tell you that. Like to be like, oh yeah, I've had a head injury, or like I can't say certain things. Like that makes it kind of hard. It's not like, sometimes we hope that our clients tell us everything, but one, they either don't remember or don't know necessarily what's relevant.
Right. Or maybe the doctors didn't even tell him, like, this is what's in your chart. That
the
happens.
amount of, so much. I think that happens in our field plenty. Like I'm guilty of it too, because I put a diagnosis to a point for the insurance, not because of what I think it needs to do for us in the room. I think some therapists are much better about that, about being transparent about it. But yeah, the amount of times where like you hear stories about client being like, oh, I was diagnosed, I might have an anxiety disorder. And they're like, oh, well, I diagnosed you with generalized anxiety like years ago. And they're like, what are you talking about? And that's just in our field. Like I have a client who recently was like, I was somehow along the way diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos, and no one told me, even though I suspected that I had some joint stuff, And so we're like totally unpacking it. We're like, oh, okay. We actually like looked up the list of diagnosis, like check mark criteria together. Yeah.
Oh, geez. So this is why, like, knowing what your therapist treats is important. And I've even had clients who come in. I'm trying to like wrap my story back with some sort of meaning right now. I've had clients that have come in and been like in a free consult, I'm having panic disorder. I know from my training that panic disorder is best treated with behavioral interventions. I'm not a behaviorist. I don't do good behavioral therapy. I should be referring that person to somebody who does. So if your therapist is referring you to somebody, it's probably not personal. It's probably just that they know the sort of treatment that you need that is not the kind that they know how to do well.
Yeah. And it might be that at least in my experience, referring out and then continuing to work with somebody is pretty unheard of because of ethics, because of the ethics that we're taught, unless you like really are able to stay in each other's lane. Like, for instance, like you said, the behaviors like, oh, I won't treat the panic, but maybe I can treat family stuff or whatever. But a lot of that could have some overlap. And so especially when we were in university counseling, we would have people be like, oh, like I see this person for sports psych and then I see this person for like other stuff. But they were finding like, oh, I do tell you guys the same thing because I like hearing your different opinions.
You're like, wait, that could be counterproductive. In our trainings, all of the different degrees have different trainings. Most of it overlaps. But there are some cases where some degrees train that you should not have two therapists for one person, even if they're working on different things. My program taught that. And since then, I've done the opposite. There have been times where I've brought another therapist into the room with me and my client to do the behavioral work because I'm like, this is not my jammy jam. Plus, I wanted to learn how to do it by watching her.
Yeah.
And then there are like, for example, there are some people that believe that if you're seeing a couple in couples counseling, that you should never see one of the individuals privately because it could bias you from the couple's work. The couple's supposed to be your clients. And there are other degree types that do that all the time. And we all feel like the way that we do it is the correct way.
This is what's best.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the only way. See how, as a consumer, it would be freaking hard to find a therapist and know that you're finding the right fit when there are all these elements to juggle, like insurance, not insurance, what degree type? Oh, does it matter? Okay, if it doesn't matter, what kind of training do they have? Is that the kind of treatment that I need? How would I know? I haven't been through grad school.
And these are all things you're supposed to be navigating when you're struggling with something,
Right.
right? It sucks. And it's sort of the reality because you deserve to shop and you deserve to know what's best. And so I think I just wanted to go back to the niching down part of it. So if you're looking for somebody, well, one of the things that when I was looking for a therapist, I was like finding those sites that like spoke to you directly. And I think I was just like, well, what therapy do they do? Like, I just don't, and I don't know if that's because I am a therapist and I was like, I don't know if they're speaking to me directly. So I don't know. Sometimes you'll see on like their Psychology Today, it's much more of like a
Like a
big
letter to
picture.
them.
But
Yeah.
sometimes it is like a letter. And that actually, as you're going to say, like, that's actually recommended because if you feel like the therapist is speaking to you, that means hopefully that they're understanding you.
If the vibe matches, you're like, this is cool. And if it doesn't
This is
match, you're like,
cool.
why are you talking to me like that?
Yeah. And then I know that you've made a really great point about people who are concerned about speaking to directly is that even if someone is interested in working with you and they don't necessarily relate to the exact words you're saying on the site, the way that you're talking is hopefully resonating with them. So if you feel like you have potentially a good vibe with somebody, it doesn't hurt to reach out and do the initial consultation. And then they will let you know if they either don't have openings or they think someone else would be a better fit for you.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that. I wasn't even thinking of it from that angle, but it is just because you're reading as the consumer something on their site and you're like, man, they really get that person. I bet they would get me. Don't
Mhm.
assume that that's the only kind of person they treat. So
Mhm.
we are told from a marketing point of view to market to one person. And sometimes we just change up our Psychology Today profile to a different person every few months. So you might
Mhm.
just hit it when they weren't marketing to you in particular, but they would like to work with you. So if you're feeling the
Yeah.
vibe, reach out and they should tell you whether or not they're a fit. Great point.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We had somebody in our course who was saying that they child stuff specifically on their Psychology Today, but she was like, I am rotating it out. So if somebody who wanted to work with her, like as an adult, went there and they read that, it might not have been like, oh, like that's for me. So
Yeah.
I think that's a good example. Like you said, another reason to sometimes just go to the website and not rely on the Psychology Today.
Yes.
Or check out the social media. What are they putting out there? Is that kind of like your approach to the world? Is that what you might like your approach to be? What are you looking for?
Y'all, give us a little bit of
Mm,
grace because we are
mm.
not graphic designers. We are doing our best over here.
Literally, yeah. We're just trying to survive. I bought a template and I dolled it up.
That's exactly
I
what I'm doing too. I cannot do that myself. I have tried. It is not cute.
and knowing your limits in all areas of life, when you need to outsource, I think is a valuable piece of insight to
Right.
have for yourself. Really quickly, is there anything else we want to touch on the online versus in-person thing and like where we're at with that?
A lot of therapists have gotten a taste for online work now, and they're
Mm-hmm.
getting to live more of their lives because they are working online. So if you are seeing that the therapists are only online, which I think is really been the trend lately,
Yeah.
give them some grace. They want to be home with their kids and their dogs too.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have done online work and it's worked well for you, go for it. If you're feeling like I am so freaking sick of being on my computer all day, every day, and I need to go to someone's office, just
Mm-hmm.
know that there might be fewer of those folks out there than there have been in the past. And especially, it's really hard as an insurance based therapist to afford rent, already
Yeah.
not making enough money. And then you're adding an expense on. So you might see it even more frequently with insurance based therapists because legit, they're like, how can I make it work to keep offering insurance,
Yeah.
but afford to pay my own bills? So I would
Yeah.
just say, if you can, give a little grace to those folks if that might work for you.
Yeah. And I think you actually touched beautifully on kind of the different factors with you take one therapist. Are they solo? Are they in a group? Do they take insurance? Do they not? And are they online? Are they in person? Now, all the things that could factor into all of that, like you said earlier, was like that could be a phase of life that they're in. They may want to be home with their kids. That's a big part for me. Keeping the overhead costs low to make sure I can kind of keep doing this is a big part for me as well. What's another thing? Anything else? I
Traveling.
mean, traveling, wanting to travel, like you mentioned that. Yeah. I mean, that's big for us. We literally, like I told you, just went to Pittsburgh and had a great time. And I was able to do that because I don't work on Fridays, and I was able to be in charge of my own schedule. I think a lot of people in our country these days don't really want someone like a lot of oversight anymore. And so all the different factors as to like why a therapist might take insurance, why their fee looks a certain way. I mean, you have a great way of talking to different people about trying to determine where your fee needs to be to like get the bills paid
Mhm.
and be able to do your work ethically. Because like you spoke about that one therapist, which was if like you are so burned out, you're not providing care, but you're feeling like you have to hustle to get your bills paid, you know,
Mhm.
if they're a single parent, if they just had upheaval financially, or you just don't know. Or as you and I spoke off mic about, they may just have done all the insurance and they're tired and they're in a different phase of life where they don't want to have to account to that anymore. And that's just
Mhm.
where they're at.
Yeah. Just finding the
Mhm,
match between what you
mhm.
need and how they offer it.
Yeah, absolutely. Big tech. You want to talk about big tech?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. So what
We're
what
going to
what are
be
we
very
talking?
careful.
We're going to be very careful. What are we talking about when we say big tech therapy companies? That's what we're
Okay.
talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
without
let's,
naming names.
yeah, no
While
naming
being
because
careful what we're referring to.
we don't
Yes.
want to get sued. So you
Mm-mm.
could kind of like separate out. This is how I think about it conceptually. There are companies that I'm going to call big tech that are
Mhm.
sort of like the big box stores for therapy. They spend a lot of money on ads to get a lot of clients, and then they match those clients to therapists. And they provide that therapist the video that they need, the health record system that they need, and all the marketing. So, because they're providing all those services, their payment to the therapist is usually pretty low. So, therapists are not, they're getting paid usually much less than they would be getting paid with insurance. So, think of that as big tech. And then there's other companies that are more like middlemen. So, therapists might partner with a company who does all the insurance billing for them or brings clients to them.
Mhm.
There's some shady stuff happening there.
Mhm.
The overall issue for both sides of this is that as a consumer, it is hard for you to know how safe or unsafe your personal information is with these companies. Some of them have structured themselves so that they're not healthcare companies, they're some other kind of company. So
Mhm.
the rules that therapists have to abide by about confidentiality, protecting your records, all of
Mhm.
they don't have to legally abide by. And in some cases, they have not communicated that to the therapist. In some cases, they boldly lied and said that they were practicing with what's called HIPAA compliance,
Mhm.
meaning every piece of software that your private information goes through is locked the heck down. Nobody's getting in there. And turns out that was not true for at least one of these big tech companies. So
Yeah.
that's one side of the risk about your junk is just not locked down. And rando people on the staff were watching videos of therapy sessions. Some
Oh my
scary
God.
stuff. Yeah, some scary
Yeah.
stuff. But then in addition, if you look as a consumer, where do these companies make their money? Then
Mhm.
you start getting a sense of like, are they really in it to keep my stuff safe? So
Mhm.
some of these companies, like the big tech companies in particular, they're not making enough money on clients paying for their services because the prices are so low. And then the therapist fees come out of that. So the profit margin will be way too slim to pay for the amount of friggin' marketing that you see them doing. So where
Mhm.
is that money coming from?
Mhm.
Sometimes it's coming from venture capitalists. Often it is coming through them sharing your private data with marketers. And we have to be careful about how we frame this, because the paperwork you will sign will say things like share, not sell data, because legally that's like a little loophole, but they getting paid somehow.
Yeah.
So I think you have to be careful when you're going with big tech. I think the positive thing I will say about them is they've done so much freaking marketing that I think everybody knows now that online therapy is a legitimate form of therapy.
Yeah.
They have helped us to destigmatize that.
Destigmatize online, but also therapy in general, I'd say. I think
Absolutely.
if we're going to give them anything, we'll give them that.
Yeah, you can have this. I don't think that was their intention, but that is the outcome. So something you should know as a consumer is that if you're working with a therapist through one of these big tech companies, you could see them in their private practice and not go through the big tech company. You could literally say to your therapist, hey, I reread the paperwork in the contract that I signed, and I ran it through ChatGPT to see if there's anything shady happening here.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go through the platform anymore. Can I work with you privately? And then they are legally required to use HIPAA compliant video, HIPAA compliant, everything, email, EHR, all of that stuff where they keep your records. And then they own the records with you rather than some big tech company you're doing with those records. Yeah. And I want to be I want to say something a little extra here.
Okay.
Deep breath. I think we're so comfortable now we're being listened to all the time and getting ads thrown at us all the time from, our phones listening to us. Oh, the kitty cat.
I was going to say, she's coming. I saw her in the corner. I was like, oh, she's gonna be so happy. I warned Amber when we were off mic, and she was like, well, I hope she shows up.
Yeah.
Here
she's
she
so
is.
Pretty.
Oh, she is beautiful.
Oh.
I love her. Can you see? Actually, your face is right over here.
Well, they would prefer not to show their face. They just want to show their rears.
I will send you pictures.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you for the
cute little potatoes. Oh my gosh, she's so pretty. Oh, I hope you guys are watching on YouTube so you can see her. She is gorgeous. Hi. Look at her. She's like giving me a little bit of side eye. She's very with that look.
She does not like to be held. So
as Bethany holds her.
As I hold her. That's the longest I think I've actually pushed it so that you all could try and see her. She's giving me a look. I don't like that. But I remember telling my husband when he picked her up to move her, I don't remember if he was moving her or if he was holding her. And I said, yeah, I don't think she likes to be held. And he said, honestly, though, she's still responding so much better than other cats he's had to pick up who really didn't like to be held. Oh, I told you off mic, but I could say Juniper. This is Juniper.
But you have to say it with the pun.
Juniper. Juniper. Yes, it was great. We knew that she was kind of like a just mature old soul, like lady, and we weren't happy with some of the names that she already had, even though, she was Sarah Lee, which because they said she was like a loaf, and I loved that so much.
Yeah, that's
But
cute.
it was great, but it wasn't one that other people in our house were in love with, and there was no other kind of like bread that was fitting her.
Sourdough.
Yeah, I know. I went with ginger for a minute, but she just doesn't look like a ginger. She doesn't feel that spicy in that way. She's a little spicy, but not that spicy. And so my husband was like, let's look at some older names. And he just was reading off of it. And I was like, I really like Juniper. And then I stopped and went, Nate, Juniper. And he was like, oh,
it's done.
It's done. Oh. So I really actually don't remember what exactly you're saying. I think you were talking about the big tech, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
I don't remember where you ended.
I was about to say something scandalous.
Oh, you were leading up to the scandal. Did you already say the scandalous thing?
No.
Okay. We were building up to the scandalous thing.
We're building up. We had to take a break to emotionally regulate.
Yeah.
And now we're ready to say the scandal.
Yeah. She was here for you. She sensed it.
I appreciate that because I do feel nervous saying it. But one of these companies, who I will not name, was found to have been having clients fill out some paperwork ahead of getting matched with a therapist, which is not totally unusual.
Right.
But it included clinical stuff, which is not always a great idea to include clinical stuff on free intake paperwork.
Right.
Now
as a client, you're like, oh, this is a part of why I'm here. You're not second guessing that.
Right. But now we've put like some very intimate things into this paperwork. The paperwork, because it was given before they got matched with a therapist, was not considered protected information and was sold, data was sold based on it. So this paperwork could include things like suicidality, betrayal trauma, a recent acute trauma. And now this person could be seeing ads related to the things that they said in that initial paperwork. So picture this. You're a couple and you're having like a real tough time in your relationship. Maybe there's been some infidelity, and you share this in the paperwork. You start meeting with your therapist, and all of a sudden you start getting ads for resort retreats for infidelity and couples.
Oh, wow.
How you gonna feel? You're gonna feel like your therapist is sharing your business somehow. Like that's not gonna be a good situation. And that's what some of our concerns are. I said that as carefully as I possibly could.
I think you did it well.
Not
There
have any
may or may
personal
not
information.
be some legislation out there about some of them.
Just Google the company that you're thinking about going with, and then you can see. Not all the lawsuits are public yet because they're still in process, but there are some that are public information, so you can look at that. And if you're ever in doubt, do what I did and just email the company and ask directly, because they do not want to lie to you in an email and then have that as written information. So you can say, is the video software HIPAA compliant? Is it end-to-end encrypted? Who has access to it? Do you use any of my information for marketing, or share it with anyone else who might use it for marketing?
I'll just blame Juniper, but I'm not remembering if you said anything about how some of those a lot of the big tech companies are really shortchanging therapists too. Like the ones that you see a lot of ads for, the amount of work that they're doing, the amount of accessibility they're supposed to have to their clients. Like they're literally advertising you can reach your therapist pretty much any time.
Right. As if your therapist doesn't have to eat dinner or put the kids to bed, or like it's also it's so incentivizing unhealthy codependency. That,
under the guise of like convenience and kind of like anonymity, like space a little bit. So it's understandable like how the marketing like hits for some people.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a big difference between. So my therapist has been fine with us texting, but the times that what I use the texting for, and this is as a therapist, I have texted her about like, hey, I need to cancel. I need to reschedule. Right. She's been sitting in there with me and we're talking about like, oh, this product that she has in her office that I could benefit from, or like whether it's mental health or just as a therapist. And she'll text me the Amazon link, right?
Right.
Like recently she was like, hey, I know that when you get a second, you heard this one podcast episode that really helped you look into getting diagnosed with ADHD. I think a client would really benefit listening to it. Can you shoot that to me real quick? That took me 2 seconds. The same for her. And she just was like, thank you. And one of the other things I did was when I did get my ADHD diagnosis, I updated her. And it was so funny. When I literally just sent her the diagnosis with no other information. And she was like, congrats? Question mark. Talking about it for so long, because she knew I was at the point where I was like, if I don't have this, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
But that's the extent of how it's gone. I'm not asking her to give more of her time to me.
And that should be a clinically guided decision. If you're going to have out of session contact with your therapist, your therapist should be making that decision because it's clinically wise. And there should be a lot of conversation about it and clear limits and a solid container, not a big company prescribing that because you're paying for it. That's dangerous.
Yeah, that is part of the service. You are to be on demand, at least during these times. And that's before, this is just me going off on a soapbox kind of tangent minute. Like how many times has we as therapists had to be like, yeah, this is really hard because this communication is over text. Some of these, literally the amount of miscommunication or all of that can happen over text. I don't want therapy via text. Like there's just way too much that could
room for
be like room for error, misunderstanding. There's just so much to go wrong, even in our personal life. The exact thing that someone would say in a therapy room that is written down would sound. I remember when I was in undergrad, I'll just use this as an example. We were doing role play because I joined a warm line to do kind of like crisis line work, like phone call stuff.
Yeah.
And we were doing practice. And I was the caller and talking about this like situation that I came up with, that I was a college student and had this roommate who had gotten, ironically, a cat without telling me, and it had scratched up the curtains and done stuff like that. And so there was this long pause because we were not looking at each other because we were emulating a call. So it's a warm line, just so you know. Warm line means you can call for like whatever, not just crisis, not like a hotline. So I remember there was this long pause, and I know for a fact that it was because she was getting help from somebody, but there was this long pause, and she said, "That must be really hard for you." And I remember, and I, developmentally where I was at, I was just like, okay, you know what I mean? Maybe if there hadn't been the pause, if she hadn't sound so rehearsed, like, because I think he literally wrote down for her to like say this to her, and she just like, that sound, no, but you know what it was? She said, "That sounds really hard." Like, and when we're reading text messages without the vocals, without the context in the same way, we can literally, like, that's how we will hear it. Like, someone recently said that who's having conflict with a family member, someone told them that their text messages, this is trying to keep it loose so it's not,
identifying.
So identifying, someone told them that their text messages were disingenuous. And the example of the text message was, "Good for you, proud of you, smiley face heart emoji."
Right. There's a lot of room for error.
Like, that's the nature of their relationship. You know what I mean? And that, like, that's so if you, I don't know, man. Like, just think about that, like how we misconstrue messages. I don't know that I would want that with my therapist.
Yeah.
Like, consistently.
I have super mixed feelings because I think as a clinician, I would need to know my client for a long time.
Yes.
To know each other well enough that I would trust that they could interpret me or at least give me the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
I did use this really sweet, like, walkie-talkie app thing that was end-to-end encrypted with one of my clients.
That's cool.
And that was super helpful because it was audio. You could type in it too, but it was mostly audio. I think if I were doing texting, solely texting, I'm trying to think of like what kind of therapy would I be doing that I would feel super comfortable with that. If I was a DBT therapist.
Yes, I was just thinking DBT therapist, which is actually like part of the work. If you're doing deep DBT, like full on DBT, the theory is, right, they need that level of like, I need to reach out to my therapist in between because I am not in my emotional window of regulation.
Yeah.
It's kind of like having a sponsor, like in like AA or whatever. That's kind of the approach I would liken it to. And that's the theory of that. But that's like part of the therapy and has been discussed, right?
And it's super contained. What you say in a text, if you're a DBT therapist, you're not doing emotional processing. You are skills. Like, what skill have you tried to regulate? What is the next skill you're going to try to regulate? Do we need to talk about a crisis stabilization? Like, it's very regimented.
Yeah. The first time I ever heard that example was a phone example because I heard a lecture on it by one of my favorite professors. And she was super into ACT and had started to learn more about DBT and was starting to teach about it and was getting into it. And so I think she saw certain clients were a good fit for this and certain were, and she was describing like, like I'm not normally somebody who would be like that kind of level of accessible, but if it's around these parameters, and she talks about it, someone's saying, giving me a call and I pick up the phone, I say, "Okay, how are you feeling? Okay, go stick your head in a bucket of water. And if you're still struggling, call me in an hour," or something like that. You know what I mean? Like bucket of ice water, because that's one of the skills. And I remembered because I didn't know the skills yet. They're called the TIT skills. Google them. They're great. But like it is putting your face in ice water. And so I was like, huh.
Dude, I used to have access to a bowl of ice water in my office when I was in person in the counseling center doing a lot of complex trauma work, I'd be like, hold on. Run down the hall, get in the refrigerator, grab my bowl, bring it back.
Stick your face right on in there. Just, we got a mirror in here for afterward. You're fine. You're fine. You'll get to class. It'll be good. This is how you're going to be able to take your exam today. Yeah.
Right. Exactly right.
Shove that face in there.
I mean, we could do wrist too. Your wrist will work.
Yeah, your wrist, or where you just hold the ice cube one. I love that one. Yeah, for grounding and stuff.
I mean, this stuff works.
Yes, there's so much science behind it when you go into the DBT manual, and this is actually enacting the diving thing, and it literally is going to force your body to calm down. And
it's cool as hell. There's, in case any of you guys listening are interested, there is a website for dialectical behavioral therapy. I might be saying it wrong. DBT is how I always say it.
That's right. Dialectical behavioral therapy. That's one of the ones I do know.
Training videos for consumers on all of the skills, and it's totally free, and they're awesome. They're really good.
I might be looking into them, so thank you for that.
Yeah,
but definitely
resource.
Plug for that for sure. Okay, we were talking about texting. I did want to then put a little asterisk and come back as we were talking. I was like, technically, I do message with my clients, but that's either over email, and I tell them it's not HIPAA, it's like not encrypted. One of the reasons I went with my EHR that I have is that it has messaging that is considered then protected. So they can message me and say, hey, I need to reschedule. Hey, da-da-da. Or I can say, hey, I had an appointment come up, or my kid is sick. Like, can we pick another time? Or we're able to talk about insurance issues real quick. I sent one to someone recently, and then something happened. What's cool about it is it does feel like if you get it on your phone and use the app there, which you got to make your own decisions about who can see your phone and stuff, but it will say new message from, and then it'll put the initials for me. So I can immediately, cool. So it's like private. I put the app in a place that you can't find it immediately if you open up the phone, which is really annoying for my ADHD when I'm trying to but every time I'm like, I got to move this. I'm like, it's there for a reason. You did that for a reason. You don't want it to be accessible. You don't want it on the first page if somebody happens to unlock your phone. Whatever, Bethany. So the person was like, I think it's because it was on the phone, because I don't think I could do it on the desktop. Put an emoji in it and said, did a thumbs up. And I was like, oh, I didn't know you could do emojis on here. Lit.
Love our clients. I love them.
I love clients so much. The best.
And it so stinks that you can't go to your husband or something and be like, you have to check this out. This is hilarious.
I think I was with my therapist, so I was able to be like, listen to how cute.
I know.
Someone just put lit in a message to me.
It does make you feel cooler as a therapist. Yes. You're like, I'm cool.
So great. Anything else that we're missing that you would want to touch on?
Okay, so we talked big tech, just to mention the proxy companies that are helping us bill insurance. Yeah. Not all of them are innocent either.
Absolutely.
And some have also not locked down your personal information. So, just Google them is all I'll say about that. And then you'll know.
And one of the reasons I keep them totally separate. When I started mine, I had a reaction of really, you guys don't have an EHR. And that stands for electronic health record, for people who know what I'm talking about, where we keep our client info. And you want it in a safe place. And I remember, I thought it would be good if they had one. That was before I knew some of the other stuff. But since then, I've been like, no, I'm happy keeping my stuff entirely separate from you.
Absolutely.
Even though they have now started to be like, you should do our EHR. You should start keeping your notes on here. I'm like, I refuse. And then they make you literally check off whether to say I'm acknowledging that I'm putting my note elsewhere. And yes, I will provide the notes within 3 days if insurance reaches out for it. You actually have to click multiple buttons now to say I'm putting my note somewhere else. They really push it. Dislike. So and they're providing me a lot of convenience, blah, 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 like I spoke to earlier. So in my phase of life right now, that's where I'm at. And, as I continue my journey, I may change. But yeah, I guess one of the big takeaways we could say, your therapist that you have had in the past or that you are looking into or currently have a number of different things. They are also human. They have different decisions that they have to make for their day-to-day and business. I think you've even said some people have almost the privilege to be able to take insurance because it's a dual income household or whatever. So just be mindful if a therapist is for one, I got to go on maternity leave, or I'm leaving the group practice. Or for instance, with mine, when I stopped seeing her for a while and I reached out to her, she's transparently, my fee went up $50 since I've last seen you. And I was like, okay. I knew. I was like, I need to be back with you. But like the fees will likely change over time. Some do sliding fee stuff, some people don't. Anything else I can think of?
I would just say that most private pay therapists that I know do sliding scale and pro bono work because they're making enough money.
Yes.
So if there's somebody you're absolutely like, that is my person, just
Yeah.
ask. It may be that
Yeah.
those spots are already filled, but it doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Just for examples, I've heard some therapists just do insurance. I've heard some that are fully private pay, but they offer some sliding scale, or they offer some at like pro bono, like you said, zero cost, or just like a $20, like a copay at a super reduced rate, but they're only doing it for like a couple a week or something.
Mm.
And then that's their way of giving back. I've heard of one therapist who's not into insurance at all once said, I give back that like my clinical work doesn't have to be the place where I necessarily give back. I use the money. I'm in a place financially where I can then give back to other causes or fight for the things that I was really doing when I worked with lower income clients or whatever. I'm contributing my time and my money and energy in a different way, separate from my clinical work. So
Absolutely. And
people
isn't
have
it
different
so
approaches.
it's
Yeah.
so interesting that like as a profession, we are expected. I have heard people say, but you're supposed to be caring about people. Or
Mm-hmm.
you're, almost like if you're in a caring profession, you're expected not to have to make a living.
Mm-hmm.
And that's weird. Nobody
Or to
says to
struggle.
plumbers, hey, can you give me a discount? Like you're supposed to want to help people. Or
Mm-hmm.
to their
I need my
neurologist.
toilet.
Yeah, you're supposed to want to help people.
Yeah.
That's a kind of weird thing that we put on therapy. I can't even call to mind another profession that we put that same pressure on to, yeah, I don't even know the right word for it. You're supposed to care about people. Well, yeah, I do. And also, I have to pay my bills. Those two things exist simultaneously.
Yeah. Well put. And I think it comes like, I didn't also say, I'll just tack on to earlier, like comes down to individual circumstances, philosophies, and just kind of like your values and time and where you're putting it, you know?
Right.
So,
Right.
so just things to be mindful of. And if we get a ton of questions over time, maybe we'll have you back and see if we can
Yeah, that would be
address some of
fun.
this. I have some of the usual kind of wrap up questions that I plan on having for everybody? Do you still see clients?
I
Yeah.
took a hiatus and I have not hiatused my way back yet. So right now my
Yeah.
full-time job is teaching therapists.
Yes. Which, we might have some therapists listening. That is like your full time right now is really helping therapists learn how to go online,
Yeah, teach people to
kind
set up
of
a practice online.
online market themselves so they can be found.
Did this math the other day that I think is
Yeah.
super interesting for therapists who are insurance based but haven't been able to start putting money into retirement yet. We did this
Mm.
formula where if they're about my age and if they've only put $10,000 into retirement yet, that if they could put $2,400 a month into retirement, they would be able to hit their retirement goals. Now, this is based on like a calculator I found online. And so we were all like, $2,400. How the heck
I
are we going to
know.
find
Where would that
2,400?
come from? I'm like thinking that's straight my income right now.
Right,
I'm putting
right,
that extra. Yeah. Yeah.
right. But if they picked up literally 3 private pay clients at at $200 a session or 4 at $150 a session, they would be able to fund their retirement. Teaching people to market to private pay client can look exactly like what you talked about earlier. It could be just a few. It could be your full practice. It could be your full practice for a while, and then you go back to insurance when you know that you've taken care of your financial obligations. So I love my work.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're so good at it. I love your brain. I love how it works, and I love your approach to people. So I thank you so much for being here. Okay. So I'll skip some of the clinical related questions.
Okay.
Y'all will have to listen to future episodes because this is going to be our first episode.
Oh.
But I like to ask, what do you nerd out about?
Oh, geez. Anything related to science, I'm super nerd on. Like, if it's marine biology, if it's tech and AI, if it's like new medical stuff that's coming out, I'm a super nerd on any of that. And then anything to do with marketing and business. I mean, I'm just like such a geek. I probably spend 10 hours a week learning something in those
So
fields.
thank you. We appreciate that. My brain like shuts off when some of that stuff comes
Oh,
up.
I love it.
But you also explain it so well.
I have a fun time thinking, okay, how can I make this make sense to normal people who don't geek out on this stuff the way that I geek out? That's a fun challenge.
Yeah. Do you have any pets?
I have had pets in the past. Most of my life, I have had dogs. We lost our babies in December,
Oh.
and now we're like super dog people. So it's hard not to have them. So I'm just babysitting all the neighbors' dogs until we get to a place where we're ready to adopt again.
Feeling ready to have another one. Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
know what you might want or like
We're thinking something smaller because we want to do a lot of traveling
or
and
traveling?
moving. Want to be able to bring them with, because living in a van for 3 months with 2 large 60-pound dogs was pretty tight.
Yeah, I could see you kind of like pulling that back a little bit. So maybe
Yeah.
something smaller. So we'll stay
Yeah.
tuned there. But yeah, really quickly, the van travel stuff. If my husband and I, like, that's part of our hopefully in the future sort of thing. Like,
Oh,
so, you know, we
man.
did,
It's so fun.
when I saw that you were doing it, I was like, man, that's so awesome because first time we ever tried it was we went to Hawaii for a 2-week trip. The second half of it, we were going to be with family, and so we are like, let's go a week early and get a camper van. And we made such great memories.
I love that. It's so fun. It's so fun.
Yeah, and it's because you've used like camper vans, like the smaller ones, right? Yeah, so not like a full camper. We have a camper now that we because of, again, phase of life stuff and convenience in that regard. But I mean, for instance, did I already say it was Hawaii? It was Hawaii. So we were able just to like go to all sorts of places and know that like when we had a bathroom with us, but also our place to sleep if we needed to. And having that all in one place is so great. But also like it fit in a standard parking spot.
That's
Like
the gift, man.
it's
Being
so
able to
great.
navigate around little cities and pop into the grocery store, but also go into the woods and camp
Yeah,
overnight. That's so
yeah,
fun.
that is so great. So what's something that you find comforting?
Hmm. Gosh, snuggling up in my bed with my planners all
Oh,
around me and my
yeah.
markers and my post-it notes and a
Yeah.
YouTube video of one of my favorite traveling people, like Eamon and Beck. Like, and
Ooh,
that's
I don't
my
know them.
like, woohoo,
Oh, I love that. Coffee or tea?
coffee for sure.
Coffee. And let's see. Well, you kind of touched probably on some of these, but what is your least favorite misconception about mental health work?
Mm. Probably one that I am so susceptible to, which is like it's very easy to put yourself second when you're a therapist, because when you're in the room with a client, you're so fully in that room and you're so centered on that human being that it can be hard for that not to bleed over into the rest of your life. Or that might just be part of your personality, and that's why you're a good therapist, and then it's obviously gonna be in the rest of your life too. So I think that part of it's just hard to separate out being fully present for one individual where all of their needs are the things that you're attending to and not your own, especially as an interpersonal process therapist where, like, sometimes you're dragging out some projection or some transference, and, like, that's part
Yeah.
of the work.
Yeah.
You get so used to being able to hold people's emotions even when they're at you, to not do that in everyday life too. Like, listen, dude, in the grocery store parking lot that just hit my car with your cart, that's not cool.
Yeah.
Instead of like, I bet you had a bad day.
Right.
Don't worry about it.
That makes me think of, I don't know if you've ever seen on this kind of therapist influencer. His name is Justin Pruder, I think is his name. And he will do you know him? Do you know
No,
him? Yeah.
personally.
Isn't he? Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, we'll talk more about that. But isn't he just, his content is just awesome. But he is
So
literally
good.
like the stuff will he be like, like what people think therapists in traffic are like versus like what they are like.
Oh, I wonder if they had some sort of misplaced childhood trauma that led them to cut me off just there.
I do
Versus
that
oh
shit.
my God. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, same.
So
There it is.
annoying.
Like I have a friend I've known since I was like 6 years old, and she will always be like, this is I think she started really pointing this out when I was still in grad school. She was like, sometimes I just want to like say something about somebody, but then Bethany will just be like, maybe they're having a bad day.
It makes life more peaceful.
Yeah, I would rather give the benefit of the doubt that someone cut me off because they're trying to get to the hospital
Right.
or whatever.
Their wife
than
is in
just
labor in
believe-
the back seat.
Oh, literally, I've said that to somebody. Yeah,
Yep.
when I was in college, I was like, I'd just rather believe that about whatever is going on than just assume that everyone's an asshole.
Right. That belief does not serve us. But occasionally it is time to be assertive, and it can
Yes.
be difficult to do that.
Yes, that there are different circumstances for different settings.
Yes.
Like one of the big things that I loved learning about when I was in training, kind of in my clinical years before graduating, was one of my supervisors had a sign in her room that said something like, "Don't mistake my kindness for weakness."
Mhm.
And people who know me know that I can kind of flip kind of quick, especially if you're coming at my people.
Well, that's
you
the
know,
truth. Yeah.
yep.
My therapy clients have also known that. They're like, oh boy, when I tell Amber this, she's gonna be pissed at them.
So it's so funny. I'll share one more little anecdote. I'll let you go, I promise. But like, I have somebody who I'm hoping to have on the podcast in the future, but like her name is Abby Swandle. She's on Instagram. She's got like 2,000 followers. And she just did a reel the other day with like a sound bite where it was saying like the caption was like your people pleasing client talking about their ex-boyfriend's new girlfriend. And like, I think that's how it was. I remember being like, so she was performing as somebody who was describing like maybe there's like a reason that she's like this, blah blah blah, and then somebody cuts in by being like, well, she's ugly, or like something like, and she's ugly, or something like that. And her lip syncing then which was like, well, let's not, and it like cuts off there. And I was thinking that was the client and that the therapist was chiming in because that's how I can be. And
Yeah.
certain people that like people have been dealing with for forever, I'll say like petty stuff in session because I'm never going to meet them. And I know they had an impact. And like, yeah, like I'll say
You're
stuff like,
you're holding the anger for the client. That's what you're
yes,
doing.
that's part of my role.
Right. That's right. Sometimes our clients need to know that the people in their lives piss us off too.
Yeah. I don't think I would say that they're ugly, but I would say something else petty, just putting that out there. So if our therapists that are happen to be listening that are like, I've never heard of Amber before, or like, oh, I didn't know she offered this kind of stuff. Or if you have people who like to follow you anyway, how can people find you? Because you have YouTube content, you're on Instagram, you have some stuff out there.
YouTube is where I'm trying to make my new home. So I'm putting more and more teaching content on there for therapists who are trying to build an online practice, but largely who are trying to market to some private pay clients. So you'll learn all about how to market. Right now, we're in the middle of a free training series that I do at least once a year, teaching therapists how to market. And then I think probably the other place, like if you just have a question, do I offer something that you need? Don't trust my website, which is amberlyda.com. My last name is Lyda because I have not updated it. So you can just email me. And my email is so hard to remember. It's dr.amberlyda@gmail.com. So you can just reach out and let me know if you have a question. And if I have it, I'll tell you. If I don't, I'll send you to somebody who does.
Awesome. Yeah. And she's really good for that. Amber really loves to try and provide as much help as possible.
I do.
To a fault sometimes.
Yep.
Where she has to keep herself in check, for what I understand. And I think, because you know what I'm thinking is that what if we have like some therapists in training or something like that are listening? Because one of the things we didn't touch on is that therapists do not get taught business stuff in grad school. If they do, it's very minimal and it's probably pretty rare. They may get some training at like a private practice and might get to see some stuff and learn some stuff. If there's someone listening who just kind of would like to know more of the ins and outs, I'm sure Amber's content would be kind of helpful to just sort of hear and just like, oh, maybe this is why my therapist chose to do this, or this might be something I need to know going into building a practice in the future.
For sure. And you can always, I have a free Facebook group called the Online Therapist Group. You can join that group. And I mean, it's a community of people who want to help you be successful. So come on in.
It's big and active. So yeah, I've gotten some helpful advice on there. But
Good. That makes me happy.
Dr. Amber Lyda, thank you so much for your time today. I've had such a great time.
Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.